So when you start to trust them and when you least expect it, they will F you up the ass like nobody's business and put all the money in their pockets. Yeah. And so she will have every right to be angry when she eventually gets there. I have the Disney Fast Pass to anger. So and yeah, you were a little slow to it, but you have every right to be angry.
Yeah.
I was recently having this discussion with somebody who is frustrated with their career and had some fear that, maybe this career is going to end and all this other stuff, and I'm afraid I'm going to get fired. And I just said to myself, because I know how hard this person works, I said, first of all, even if you do get fired, are you going to sit there and say, ugh, I didn't try hard enough, I didn't give it my best effort, I wasn't a good employee? No, so why would you beat yourself up?
Yeah.
There are just there's some bad people in this world. There's some greedy, horrible, awful people in this world, and they control mostly everything. And I have no regrets about how I conducted myself whatsoever at that last station.
Yeah.
I do not beat myself up at all. But can I be angry at them? Absolutely. Will I be angry at them forever? Absolutely. Maybe it's not productive, but it's better than being in the fetal position.
Well, I'll tell you this: the situation with WMMR again is like you worked with so many great people. Our bosses were great. Our salespeople were great. Our talent were phenomenal people. You couldn't be mad at anyone at the station. It was just corporate. You were mad at Florida. You were mad at these redneck hillbilly dump fucks that had no idea what they were doing. And you had to watch them begin to destroy something legendary. That is taxing, dude. And
it's emotionally exhausting. And unfortunately for me, it wasn't just corporate, which made it that much more difficult.
Right.
The people who I had to pass in the hall every day were treating me like absolute garbage.
Yeah. Well, I still remember the day that we found out that they were buying us. We were privately held. It was a company called Greater Media. Best company I've ever worked for, by the way. Just a fantastic company out of Boston. We own stations in New Jersey, Boston, and the big ones in Boston. Sports Hub, where Big Jim works. That was Greater Media, which is now Beasley. We had Riff in Detroit. So we had Philly, Detroit, Boston, and some Jersey stations. And the old man died. He was out jogging, trying to stay healthy, and dropped dead of a heart attack.
See what I tell you about trying to stay healthy?
There was some fear that he may sell, or that the family may sell after he passed away. But then the kids stepped up and decided they were going to run the company, and we all big sigh of relief. We're all like, oh, thank God. And they ran it for a while, and then a few years later, they finally decided to sell. So then it was just the waiting game, sitting around going, well, who's interested in this group of radio stations? We all kind of crossed our fingers and hoped it would be a company like Hubbard, another privately owned company. Somebody that cared about radio, cared about the product. And we got the absolute worst case scenario. I mean, dude, it would have been better to, not that it could have happened because of the number of stations in town, but it would have been better to be picked up by iHeart. It would have been better to be picked up by Odyssey, Beasley. These are a bunch of small market operators, right? All they had ever done is these small to middle market radio stations. They had no experience in large markets. I think they ran the country station in Philly for a short time, but they were small market operators. And then at the, cash of a check, they all of a sudden are running stations in Boston, Detroit, and Philadelphia, three of the biggest markets in the country, right? And some of the most successful stations in the country. And now they're in charge of these big market stations, and we all went, oh, boy, maybe it's not as bad as we've heard. You start asking. You start asking around. You start asking people that have worked for them before. And a lot of people were like, if you'd say, just tell me one thing about them. They're cheap. And I'm like, yeah, well, every company's cheap. And they're like, no. They're really, really cheap. And the first thing we noticed when they took over was that we lost a bunch of people because they simply could not afford to insure their families anymore. Because we went from working for a company that provided health insurance. Obviously, you pay your fair share, but you can insure your whole family for an affordable price. And Beasley came along, and they only insure the employee. So, oh, my God. Pancake. I just got a text from Pancake. He's another victim of this stuff. He just sent me a text that says it works in Fayetteville. I'll have to tell you about that. That was our ongoing joke. It works in Fayetteville. So they, what was I saying? That I completely got sidetracked by Pancake.
You were talking about who they were insuring.
Oh, yeah. So we lost, like one of the first people we lost, I was terribly bummed about because he was one of our best IT guys and just one of the coolest cats that worked at the station. Just the greatest guy in the world. Kind of guy you could call on the weekend and say, dude, my phone's not working. Can you help me? And he was always there. And he said, I got to go. And I was like, why? You don't have to leave. They're not cutting your pay. He's like, dude, it would cost me more to insure my wife and kids now than my mortgage. He's like, I cannot afford to work here anymore. So that was the beginning stages. We started seeing people drop because of the insurance, people that had their families insured. All of a sudden, this company will only insure the employee. Now, you can add them to your policy, but you're going to pay full price. Well, I don't know if you've ever seen full price on insurance, but you're talking, $1,000 a person.
Right.
It's ridiculous, right? So we lost a lot of people there. And then and I think a lot of the credit goes to Bill Weston, our old boss, right? And if you're new to listening to us, Brian and I have both worked for Bill a few times over the last 25, 30 years.
Best in the business.
And he's just one of the best programmers in the business. He's the guy that brought me into Philadelphia. He's the guy that hired Preston and Steve. He's the guy that brought Matt Cord back over. He's the guy that
put Jaxon and the Pharmacist together as a radio team.
Yes, he did. He was the guy that put us together. And he brought Jackie Bam Bam in. I mean, the guy knows what he's doing. He is retired just a couple of years ago. God, has it been a couple of years? Maybe only a year ago. But he dropped out.
I think it's just over a year.
He dropped out.
He saw the writing on the wall.
He was done, man. He had plenty of years of programming left in him, I think. But I think he saw it and went, yeah, this is probably a good time to bow out. But for the longest time, and I say a lot of credit goes to him, we were kind of in this bubble. Like, they were never going to F with WMMR, and they were never going to F with the Sports Hub in Boston.
Because they would be stupid.
Stupid, right? Two of the most successful, if not the most successful, radio stations in the country when it comes to ratings and revenue, right?
Nothing touches the Sports Hub in New England.
Nothing touches WMMR. Well, it does now, but nothing used to touch WMMR, and nothing touched the Sports Hub in Boston. So it was always like this, oh, well, we're the cash cow. They're never going to mess with us, right? So they'd make their changes in all their other markets and make cuts here and there. But and maybe there was a little ego there. Maybe we thought, they won't mess with us. And,
no, it's common sense.
Right. So that we hung on a good 4 or 5 years before they pierced the bubble, is the way I like to put it.
Can I interrupt here? And if you don't want to tell the story, you don't have to. But very shortly after Beasley took over, they sent a couple of empty-headed suits in to give the pep talk to the troops. Everything's fine. Don't worry. You got nothing to worry about. And then thanks to Uber, you heard some stuff.
Oh, that's right. I'd almost forgotten about that story. Yeah, they came into town.
So this is freshly when Beasley takes over the state.
Yeah, so the rednecks come into town. And, dude, when I tell you they're backwards-ass rednecks, I'm not kidding. And they come into town with their mullets and, Converse, trying to be cool. Look at me. I got a mullet. I'm wearing a suit with Converse. How cool am I? You're not. So they come in, they give the pep talk and everything. And I used to have this Uber driver. God, I can't remember his name. But he was a guy that one of my neighbors started using. And then word kind of spread that he also had a taxi license. So basically what he would do, he's like, don't call Uber. Call me, dude. He's like, call me. I'll charge you whatever the Uber rate is. But, it was like an Uber Black. Like he'd have beers sitting in the back seat waiting for you. He'd take us to concerts. He'd pick us up from concerts. He was fantastic. You could get him on a moment's notice, and just a great guy. And I'm riding to the MMRBQ one year with him. I say, hey, man, call him up. Say, hey, me and my buddies, we're gonna head over to the MMRBQ. Probably going to be doing some drinking today, so we could use a ride over and a ride back. Yeah, I got you covered, man. Got an extra ticket? And of course I do. I'll give you a ticket. So we're on the way over there, and he says to me, hey, what company is it that owns you guys now? I was like, oh, yeah, it's a company just purchased us. Don't know much about them yet, but they're called the Beasleys. He's like, huh. He's like, yeah. I don't know if I should be saying this, but I gave them a ride. I said, what? He's
right
like,
after the meeting where they told everybody, don't worry, everything is fine.
Yeah, don't worry, we're not touching a thing. You guys are incredibly successful. Why would we mess with that, right? Made us all feel fairly comfortable. And he says, I gave him a ride to the airport, back to the airport to leave town. And I said, oh, wow, cool. He's like, yeah, so I eavesdropped. I said, what? I go, oh, you got to tell me. He goes, well, the first thing they brought up was how are they going to go about firing that morning show, the Preston and Steve show, because that was just far too much money for their company and for a morning show. He's like, so they debated in the backseat of my car all the way to the airport, who could they cut from the show, or could they just get rid of the whole show and start over? And when I heard this guy tell me that these new owners were thinking about shit canning the most successful morning show in the country, I just went, oh my God, we're screwed.
And once again, this is them trying to lull you into that false sense of security. Everything is fine. Ignore the man behind the curtain. Yeah. And then literally minutes later, how can we bury them all?
How do we fire that show? So I had to sit with that for a little bit. And then, like I say, I think a lot of credit goes to Bill for kind of keeping us protected for a long time. He stood his ground. When they wanted something, he'd say, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And for a good, 3, 4, 5 years, we remained in our bubble. They pierced that bubble. And I was the first, lucky me, I was the first one to have the axe fall down on. And what they did was they came in and brought me into the office and said, hey, I've got like 2 years left on my contract, which, first off, talk about negotiating in bad faith. Mm-hmm. I got 2 years left.
Isn't worth the paper that it's written on.
Right. So now I will say that thanks to my agent, I made out pretty well. I mean, lost my job, but I made out pretty well on the back end of that thing. But they said, hey, you're caught up in some budget cuts, and we're gonna have to let you go. And I was like, whoa. So back up. I said, wait a second. I said, I understand budget cuts. I've been doing this a long time, man. I said, you're going to cut the #1 rated afternoon show in the city of Philadelphia, a show that probably makes you millions of dollars.
In a top 10 radio market.
In a top 10 radio market to save a few bucks? And that's when the GM said to me, well, if I know one thing, it's when the Beasleys want something done, we have no choice but to do it. We can't question it. And the way they see it is we can't just go out there firing people that only make, $30,000 a year. We need to, if we're going to save money, have to come after some of the bigger salaries. And I was like,
i.e., your most talented
talented people, the people that have been there the longest, the people that earned that salary through ratings and revenue and years of service, right? So just about to the end of that conversation, they slide a piece of paper in front of me and say, but they will offer you this new contract, right? And I won't even get into it. It was such a horrific deal, and it was about a 45% pay cut. And it was so awful that I was
And incidentally, too, your duties for the company would increase by 20%, and they were non-radio related.
Yes, yeah. Like I said, I won't even get into it other than to tell you it was the most horrific deal. No one on earth would have signed it. And it only took me about 12 hours to figure out, after making a few phone calls and talking to Pierre and talking to the morning show and talking to everybody else, talking to Bill, that what they were doing was they were going to be axing overnights. So they found a loophole in the union contract. The union contract says that you cannot have a recorded voice. The station had to be live 24/7. So that's how we always had a live overnight person. And they found a loophole that said, well, it says here we cannot record a voice. What if we put no one on? So that's why, to this day, there's not a voice on overnight, because the union contract still says they can't do that. But they can just put no one on. So I knew then that what they were doing is they were holding on to Brent, who was our overnight guy at the time. And if I said yes to this new deal, he was going to get the axe. Overnights were gone. If I said no, they would move him to afternoons. Overnights are gone, right? So they had their bases covered. They had this all figured out. And so I kicked it around for a couple days.
And you threw yourself on the grenade.
Yeah, more or less. But, yeah, it was a really, really shitty time. And then I've had to witness it from afar now, you know, when it happened with Pancake and, you know, when they start diving into shows and picking people off, like when they dive into the Pierre Robert show and say, yeah, we're firing your producer. What? And then, you know, once they pierced the MMR bubble, things started, you know, they started firing people left and right. Promotions people, sales people. People just started dropping like flies, dude. Morale started to go to shit. It's just a bad place to be. But that show, that morning show, and rightfully so, dude, they've earned every penny they've made. They have earned every amount of success that they have had. They are amazing. When they pierce the bubble on that, look out. The end is near. Because I didn't think that was possible. I didn't think that could happen. And they did it. They came in and took one of them out. It's terrible.
And unfortunately, it serves as a wake-up call to everybody who's left behind on that show.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine. I mean, I've talked to, I've remained friends with most people that work there through the years. And one of the things they said is, you know, it's just morale. You know, it used to be such a great place to work. It was a place you looked forward to going to every day. You were just happy to be in the hallways, happy to see the people you worked with. You know, some days you'd have to kick me out of there. It was just a fantastic place to be. It's just awesome energy.
But this is where the company tried to take advantage of you with the shit offer that they gave you when it was like either leave or do this.
Yeah.
They know how much you love it.
Yeah, of course.
They're counting on you being so desperate to stay.
Right.
That they can just make you their little bitch, which incidentally, once they take advantage of you once, don't think that that's going to be the end of it.
It's not, and that's the thing. So I get on the phone with my agent, and I'm like, I don't know, dude, man, maybe I should just, you know, I don't feel like moving. I love it here. I've been here for 20 years. I don't want to leave. You know, maybe I should just do it. And he's like, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I'm going to tell you this. This new contract is going to be shit. You're going to lose all the protections that you currently have, all the severance, all the protections, all the things that you currently have. You're going to give that up, trade it in for something crappy, and then in a year from now, they're probably going to do this anyway. And I just sat with that and went, you know, he's right. And sure enough, dude, what happened a year after I was gone? Andre Gardner on MJK got it after 20-plus years. So I just went, you know, that's what they would have done. They would have given me this shitty contract that didn't have a huge payout. And a year later, they still would have done the same thing, right?
Well, and you and I had a discussion about it, and I think I had told you at the time, because I was in a situation that I thought was a good one, and it was one of those rare jobs where I didn't have a contract, which at first I thought was an advantage because I didn't have a non-compete, which meant if I got a better offer 10 minutes away, I could take it the next day, as opposed to having to sit on the sidelines for like 6 months to a year. And because I didn't have a contract, they went after money that I was promised, to the extent that I eventually had like 6 figures stolen from me. I'm not going to say who this employer is, but I'm just going to tell you that because I was like, well, I don't know that I'm going to be able to find another job, and I don't know what I would do, and I still do like some people here, so I just took it up the ass and then like had to walk by these people every single day and pretend that I didn't want to murder them. And they ended up firing me anyway. So I think at the time I told you, like, dude, if I had that to do all over again, like, I'm so pissed at myself that at that point I didn't just tell them to go F themselves. But like I said, that's what they depend on.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, they love it so much. And they all think that we're replaceable. And based on how Beasley is doing financially, as we just saw, they're in these large markets getting small market results, and everything is circling the drain. And this is just another notch in that belt with many more to come before it's just completely dead in the water.
Yeah, it's sad to watch, man. It really is. And I fear that now that they've finally pierced that morning show bubble that I don't know. Well, it's only going to be downhill from here, and everybody's looking over their shoulder now, and it's just not a good thing. But here's the deal. We all know terrestrial radio has been dying. It's been on its deathbed for many years now. It has a very small piece of the pie with streaming and Spotify and Apple Music and all the different choices out there. It just doesn't hold the power that it used to hold. But there were a handful of radio stations, MMR being one of them, in the country that still held a significant amount of power, that still was, so much a part of the community that they had a lot of life left in them. So it was really sad to just see somebody come in and treat it like, a run-of-the-mill station in Fayetteville. That's what Pancake was saying, is like whenever they would come to us with these really bad ideas, one of the things they said one time was, well, we did this in Fayetteville and it worked. And so it just became this ongoing joke, it works in Fayetteville. It's like, all right.
We had management at my last station, I think within the last 5 years of my employment, so not all that long ago, who said, do we really need the internet stream? This is the rocket scientist with everything going to the internet, thinking more about the money that they would save to take us off the internet, which would take us off smart devices, online streaming, you name it. These are the brain trusts who are in charge of all these things, and this is exactly why that industry is where it is.
Yeah, and look, this is, we chose to go this route because we believe truly, firmly, that it is the future. And look, both of us tomorrow could be working for a radio station.
Yeah, right? if we were willing to move.
Willing to move or willing to make some sacrifices. Mm-hmm. Like I could be working in Philly tomorrow if I were to give this up. And I'm just not willing to give this up. This is our thing. Nobody tells us what to do. We can say whatever the hell we want to say. We can play whatever the hell we want to play. There's no middleman. And it's really a fantastic place to be, and I truly believe it's the future. And
I mean, in terms of loose cannons, I'm more concerned about the gentleman who owns this operation versus you and myself. It's that kind of company.
Our politically incorrect owner.
But I want to say this to Kathy. I hope Kathy's listening. And Kathy, we never met, but any friend of Jackson's is a friend of mine, and I'm sending you love and thoughts and peace and everything else. And I mentioned how initially I felt this sense of relief that morphed immediately into anger. But I do want to say, in a full circle sense, that it's back to relief. And Jaxon and I, we speak often and a lot of times when we're not behind microphones. And one of the things that we've continually been saying over and over again, if we had an opportunity to go back to it, like let's just say, Kathy, in 2 weeks they come back to you and say, do you want to work here again? We're sorry we made a mistake.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd go back. It's just, I'm relieved to be out from under it, because why would you want to jump back on board to a sinking ship that has already mistreated you so badly? As we've said countless times, think about it from a relationship perspective, a romantic relationship. There's nothing worse than loving something that doesn't have the capacity to love you back.
Radio never
stopped
love you
loving
back.
us back about 15 years ago, and it's never coming back. The book, He's Just Not That Into You, that's radio.
Right. And by the way, if you're new to the show, I apologize. Normally it's just a bunch of dick jokes and we just make fun of each other, but today we're on one. Because
not to say that there hasn't been any shortage of this, because we've certainly had these conversations many times as well.
We were talking about our politically incorrect owner, the guy that runs this ship that we're on. He just texted us, and he said, redneck hillbilly dumbfuck may be the best thing ever said on the air. That's the kind of guy we work for.
Yeah, he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. And I just got a text from Sarah,
Sarah.
My old partner in crime. Everybody remembers Sarah, lovely woman. She says, I'm listening to you guys now. Remember how we found out? I had forgotten about this. We found out we were purchased by Beasley. She goes, remember how we found out via an all-access email alert right as we were going into the song Money by Pink Floyd. Wow. Yeah. Wow.
The universe has a sense of humor.
Yeah, I guess. So, Kathy, I wish you well. I sent her some unsolicited advice this morning and just said, take a trip. I said that like 30-plus days that I spent on the road did wonders for my soul. I told her, I was like, you have some downtime that you may not ever have again. Right?
Yeah.
It could be a long, long time before you have a bunch of free time. I was like, go do something you want to do. Go travel. Go someplace. Do something. Pursue something you've always wanted to do and take advantage of this downtime so that you don't sit and stew.
And can I give her a piece of advice, too, that I hope will put a smile on her face, because this is where I've been in her situation, because you were lucky enough to be doing afternoons for as long as you did. Kathy, get some sleep.
Yeah, right.
Get up at like 10 a.m.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
Because you can.
Here's the thing. It takes so long to get out of that. And
didn't take me long.
She's been in it for 20-plus years. Like, coming off of D.C.
As had I.
Dude, it took me. I'm still not out of it. You hear me bitch about it all the time, going, God damn it, I'm sick of waking up at 5 a.m. I just can't seem to get out of that. I'll do the thing where I stay up really late and go, all right, I'll sleep till like 9 tomorrow. So I'll stay up till like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. I wake up at 5. Nothing changed. I'm slowly but surely coming out of it. It seems I get a little bit later each morning. I think this morning I made it until like 7:10.
Look at you.
Pretty good. Just pretty good.
I would say, too, because I'm sure we have an even bigger Philly contingent today. Maybe there are certain things, Jaxon, having been a former Beasley employee, that he can't say. But you, as somebody who has maybe listened to MMR for years, I'm sure you have some thoughts on everything that went down this morning. Give us a call and let us know how you feel about it.
Yeah.
Hey, we can't control what they say, Jaxon. You know what I'm saying?
I don't give a crap what I say anymore. I really don't. I mean, I told, Kathy, it's obviously best to remain professional. You
finally turned into me.
Yeah, remain professional in the beginning and just, it's the nature of the biz. Boy, it sucks. Wasn't my decision, but it happened. And, and down the road, there'll be plenty of time to bitch. Her statement this morning says, after 22 amazing years, my time with the Preston and Steve show on 93.3 WMMR has come to an end. This was in no way my choice or Preston and Steve's choice. We are devastated. I can tell you only listened to a little bit of it this morning. I guess it was pretty heartbreaking to listen to. I'm going to go back and check it out tonight. But the first thing I noted, kind of in the back of my brain there, was, boy, it really sounds like there's a lot more they want to say and they can't. Mm-hmm. She says it's been...
Well, I'm sure that the company probably attempted to give them some guidelines in relation to how this should be discussed. Sure. But you know what? This is where I will give them credit, because 95% of companies, like when I got blown out, I'd been there for 12 years.
You disappear.
I was a 30-year radio guy in the market, and they were just like, pack up your stuff, get them off the website, pretend that it never happened.
And that's how it happens, dude. And I will say... this is what I meant earlier when I say it puts you between a rock and a hard place, because the people at the radio station, even in management, the people at the radio station are friggin' awesome people. And, she got to say goodbye. She knew this was coming and still got to go on the air and still got to discuss it and got to say goodbye. Maybe she didn't get to say everything she wanted to say, and maybe they didn't get to say everything they wanted to say, but she had that opportunity. Mm-hmm. When I left, I knew, and I was still on the air. I was in the make a decision mode, but they let me stay on the air. And so I was able to not just disappear. And then, because Bill was still there, I remember him calling me like 45 days later and going, Jaxon, did you get everything you need off the website? He goes, because now they're really down my throat to scrub you from the website. Like, he wouldn't take me off the website. He left me up there for like a month and a half.
Right.
And he's like, I know there's interviews. There's probably, pieces of audio that you want off of there. I don't want you to just disappear. Again, good people at the station. But I think that the only thing they're going to understand is a dollar sign. And as much as it pains me, I'm going to say what I said a couple of years ago. And it's like the only way that they're going to stop doing stuff like this is for you to actually just stop listening. Mm-hmm. They have to lose it all. I don't know of another way. Otherwise, there's just this tiny uproar and, oh, my God, I can't believe what they did to Kathy. It sucks. Oh, my God. And, and a month later, everything's back to normal and the ratings don't change and everything's good. Now, they need to feel the pain. And I know, look, when they scrapped overnights and they ditched my show, they did lose a large bit of their audience. But it wasn't enough to,
Well, even here, when I was gone, there was this enormous uproar, and I remember being told when I was employed there, if we ever fall out of the top 3, we're in a crap ton of trouble. And I think the only times that I was really falling out of the top 3 of the station was when Christmas music would come along. So like for a month, the station that's going all Christmas might get a little bit of an advantage over you. So then the first year I was gone, I don't even think they sniffed the top 3. And for a full year, everyone was like, F them, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Then time starts to pass, and then people forget about you. And that's just the cycle and the way that things go.
Yeah.
And while they have certainly not had the consistency that they had for the 12 years that I was there, there is this sense that everything is kind of back to normal.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And I think what Jackson's trying to say is you can't just disappear for a while and then be like, oh, well, where else am I going to hear?
No, because they're going to do it again. They'll do it again. If they see no change, if they see, wow, look, we were able to cut this, this, and this, and it didn't hurt us in any way, shape, or form. Well, you're just giving them carte blanche to do it again. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Look, I would say if you were a big fan of the station, a big fan of that show, me personally, I wouldn't listen anymore. And I'm not saying you have to listen to us. I'm not saying tune us in every day.
I'm saying you do.
Oh, that would be nice. But there are plenty of things to listen to, right? Plenty of things to listen to.
There's no shortage of options.
Yeah.
That's for sure. And incidentally, even if you don't boycott it, here's the reality. It's going to die whether you listen to it or not. At some point, if you don't stop listening to it now, it will eventually be taken away from you because this business model as it stands, it cannot survive.
No, it's bleed it dry, suck as much money out of it as you can, and then, float away in your golden parachutes. And that's what the Beasleys plan to do,
So you may as well start weaning yourself off of it now because it's not going to be here forever. Mark my words.